Hello, credit union community. Here are your topics for today's show. First, when AI becomes one person's job, does it accelerate adoption or become a bottleneck? Next up, your best young professional is ready to move up, but when every seat above them is full, how do you keep a star employee from looking elsewhere? And finally, the Credit Union Board Modernization Act became law without the president's signature. So is this the advocacy win the industry has been waiting for, or does its unusual passage complicate the victory? Welcome to Grow Your Credit Union, the podcast built to help today and tomorrow's credit union leaders level up. I'm your host, Joshua Barclay. On this show, I try to facilitate challenging discussions and present solutions to industry obstacles. Remember, this is your show. So if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, send it my way at info@growyourcreditunion.com. Before we begin today's show, I want to first mention our sponsor, Family Security Plan. You will hear more about Family Security Plan later in the show. Let me bring out today's co-host. He's a regular on the show, and his name is James McBride. James, happy to have you back.
Man, it's always great to be here. I'm so excited. You know, the last time that I was here, I was having to hold a microphone like in front of my face, and I've kind of got that figured out. So, man, hopefully it's going to be a little bit smoother for me this time, but man, it's always fun to be here and have great conversation.
I'm glad you're back. And now I'm holding a microphone. So for people listening, I'm in New York City today and in a tiny little apartment with the worst lighting of all of us. So let's do this. You might have to bolster me today. I might need to rely on you, James, for support in today's show. But before we get going, James, I wanted to ask you a question. What did you want to do before you got into the credit union world?
Oh, wow. So my idea of a good life when I was a 22-year-old kid was to get as far away from my family as possible. So to me, that was to move out to I was going to move to New Mexico, and I was going to get a master's degree in creative writing. And my idea was I was going to try to write books and sit in a room and talk about feelings. And then life happened, man. And it turned out that I fell in love with the credit union industry. And today I can't imagine living anywhere where my family isn't. So life throws you curveballs sometimes.
A lot of questions there. Number one, New Mexico. I don't think I've ever heard anybody tell me that the plan was to move to New Mexico. Was there significance? Did you like watching Breaking Bad? What about New Mexico was tugging at your heartstrings?
Man, I wish it was more complex than the fact that I had a university that wanted to pay me to go there and to be an adjunct teacher at the time. So that was really all it was I had a group that wanted me to be there. It was as far away as I could get from my family, and it was beautiful. So all of those things kind of tied together really gave me an opportunity to think this is where I want to go. And again, ironically, I never made it out there. But that was the plan. That was the plan.
I would ask another question about why you're trying to run from your family, but I think that is a different type of show. So we'll avoid the therapy session and we'll bring out our guest for today. Shall we do that, my man?
Let's do it.
Let's introduce today's guest. She's the Vice President of Member Relationships and Service at Sun East Federal Credit Union, Jackie Belusko. Jackie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I appreciate you asking me to be on your show.
The credit union industry has a new job title. Michael Ogden at CU Times reports that Wings Credit Union appointed Scott Coleman as Chief AI and Innovation Officer. This is one of the first executive AI leadership roles of its kind in the credit union industry. But James, Jackie, this is where I get a little hung up on this. When you have one AI person, kind of your leader of AI, and you make it that person's job, does it stop being everybody else in the organization's job? Meaning, like, is the lending team going to wait for the AI guy? Is the marketing team going to have to wait for the AI guy? Is this just a big bottleneck? So let's kick things off with you, Jackie. Which way do you land? Should AI be owned by an executive, or do you think it should be owned like organization-wide?
So I really think that AI needs to have executive sponsorship, but it needs to be an organization-wide ownership. So you have your lending team, your marketing team, your retail team. They all need to embrace AI and learn AI So although the executive is just simply a sponsorship of it, they need to have an understanding of what do all the departments need from AI and how are they going to utilize it. So it needs to be a whole team. It needs to be organization-wide, but everybody needs to understand AI. So it all needs to be part of it.
James, your thoughts on this? Is this a good idea? Do we need a chief AI officer? Did this come too late? Did this come too soon? Is this a big nothing burger? Talk to me.
I think it, frankly, might be a combination of all three of those things. So if you think about what it actually likely states. So in a lot of credit unions today, especially as you start to get up into the higher asset ranges, you often have a chief innovation officer, right? So this is chief AI and innovation. So when you say, hey, we have a chief innovation officer, let's just full stop there. What does that say? That says this credit union is committed to innovation. Well, that doesn't necessarily preclude everybody else from the organization for being responsible for being innovative. It's basically the organization saying, hey, we're going to commit to this. So I think that's how I read it, is that's a statement of saying we are committed to AI. AI is going to be a part of what we do here. And if that's the road they go down, that road is going to take them to AI as part of your job now. It's part of your responsibility. You've got to be thinking about this because that's the way the industry is going. I didn't say our industry. I said industry, right? This is the way things are moving. You need to be doing this. If that's the direction they decide to go in with this, that's helpful. Conversely, what you said was what could happen is everybody kind of stands around with their hands in their pocket. And we all know credit unions where that happens too. So it's a slippery slope. So if everybody's standing around with their hands in their pocket and saying that guy or that woman is responsible for telling us what to do with AI, we've got a problem. What we need is guardrails. So I think Jackie had it right. Executive sponsorship. You need guardrails. You need rules in place so people know what they can and cannot do. How can you use your data or not use your data? Once you have that in place, then you need to empower the people in the organization to act accordingly and hold them responsible if they fail to do so.
Jackie, I want to come back to you and ask how you're kind of dealing with AI in your credit union right now. Do you have one person that's kind of the AI leader? Do you have a committee? Sort of how are you navigating the steps to implement this and get this moving? Because we all read about how we as an industry aren't moving with AI fast enough. So what are you kind of doing in your organization to kind of move and speed that process up?
Sure. So we just implemented a call center AI last year. So, some may say we're a little late to the game when it comes to call center AI, but we did have a whole committee that was part of that solution, part of who we even chose. It was myself and our IT head that ran the whole entire project, and now my team oversees it. But that's only one part. There's so many other parts for the organization that AI is going to get implemented in. So to have that executive sponsorship, to understand it, to understand how it can help not just my call center, but can understand how it's going to help lending. So we haven't really done that yet. We haven't really looked into all the other departments that an AI solution can help.
Yeah. Do you see yourself eventually having a chief AI officer, you think? Somebody who's just in charge of the whole kit and caboodle? Or do you think you're probably a little further out from something like that?
I think we're a little further out from something like that. And I don't even think it's necessary for us right now because we're in the beginning stages of it. But as we grow, absolutely, it could be something. Whether I think it's absolutely necessary, like you have to have it, I don't know that answer yet. But if we were, it still needs to involve a committee. It can't just be one person in charge of it that says, oh, well, your lending team could need that. Well, you don't work in lending. How do you know? How do you know what we need?
You said something interesting, Jackie, about you don't really know if you're going to need it, right now, that type of role. And to close things out, James, because we're kind of running up on time, I'm curious your thoughts about this role, just the chief AI officer role, whether this is something that is good for the industry, whether, I kind of asked you that, but I'm just curious because it is a role I'm hearing more and more about. The producer, Andrew, and I, we talk to a lot of cybersecurity folks, and a lot of them are talking about this role. So I don't think this role is inconsequential, but I'm just curious what you think in terms of, is this a role that we're going to see a lot more of, or is this going to be kind of a one-off thing that I read about in a headline because it's so rare?
I'll shoot you straight. I think it needs to be more prevalent, all right? But it needs to be done the right way. So I always tell my friends in the credit union space, we need to be mirroring other industries. We need to be thinking about the way other successful companies are going to market and attracting consumers, because that is our real competition these days. So when you think about, the Starbucks of the world, they've got a wallet with all that money in it, right? That's money that could be on deposit at the credit union if we had it set up the way that the consumer wanted it, for instance. So those are things that we have to be thinking about. AI is truly all about innovation and use cases. So how are we going to use it? How are we going to educate our people to use it? That's something that really needs something behind it. So you look at companies like Amazon, man, they were on the forefront of this years ago. Chief AI officer, I don't know the exact title they had, but they had somebody that was in charge of that. He's gone off and built a multi-billion-dollar business of his own because of what he was able to do at Amazon, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, the credit union industry, I think in large, it's not just AI, but in large needs to be mirroring what other industries are doing to attract consumers. The more we do that, the more we think about the way that they're building and driving their businesses, the more likely we are to find success in our own.
There's a piece in Harvard Business Review this week about what to do when your best person is ready for the next level and there is no next level. No opening at the executive table, no lateral move that makes sense. We talked about this in a previous episode with Brian Waldron. Young credit union professionals are looking up at the org chart and seeing no path to leadership. The seats are full, the people in them aren't moving, and nobody is telling them how long the wait is. Jackie, I'm going to put you in the hot seat here. What do you do when there's nowhere to promote a star employee?
So I think that one of the biggest mistakes organizations make, not just credit unions, is assuming that growth can only come from a promotion. It can only come from a new title. We do need to kind of look beyond that. There's not always a position that's going to be open, but it's getting them to that level before that position opens to get them ready for that leadership role or whatever role they're looking for. It's keeping them engaged. It's having them lead maybe some strategic projects, making them feel empowered, having them mentor others, gain cross-functional experiences to develop new skills. It empowers them to want to achieve more. So it's not just to fill a leadership role today, but to continually help them grow, to develop them as a leader. So when that position opens, they are fully ready and fully capable.
So you're thinking about this from a lot of different areas then, Jackie. It's more than just a job title, meaning if there is no new job title for me, you might give me the lead on a new project. You might help me mentor someone else in the organization. So I like what you're saying. What you're saying and what I'm hearing is there's a lot more opportunity than just simply a new job title, right? There's other things you can do to cultivate employees and make them happy without giving them a VP title, let's say, right?
Absolutely. Sonny's, we've developed a culture of titles don't matter. So we all work together as a team. We all try and help each other. We all work together as a team. So it's not so much about a title, but it's feeling worthy of what I'm doing. It's making my job, no matter what it is. If I'm a teller, I'm going to be the best teller I can be. If I'm an MSR, I'm going to be the best MSR I can be. And what do I want to do next? So it's empowering our staff to do what they want to do, but to also help them get to the next level. So if something does open up, they are ready to do that. So I just don't want people to be hung up on a title and, I want to get to that VP level. I want to get to the C-suite. It's do the best at what you're doing now and let me help you and mentor you to be at that level. Let me give you more jobs, better strategic thinking jobs, leadership roles to help others.
James, what do you think about Jackie's perspective on this? I dig it, but I know there's going to be some people that still care about that job title at the end of the day. So in your experience, James, when you've had employees that were stars and there was really nowhere to move them up, how did you approach that?
So the first thing that I'll say is I want to congratulate Jackie. That culture that she's describing, frankly, it's elusive and rare in our industry. So I think about my experience. I was able to contribute on teams across 4 different states over 25 years. I've been, serving credit unions from coast to coast for the last year or so. And here's the thing that I see constantly happen is what you just alluded to. And it could have even been what Wings did, for all we know, is create a job title to satisfy somebody's desire for upward advancement. Maybe we don't have any more money to give that person, so we're going to give them a title to try to massage that a little bit. I've seen that happen repeatedly in our industry. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying that that's what I've seen happen. So if you can go the other direction, that's great. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I think you have to be thinking about is we're running a business. So it's dollars in, dollars out. That's the way the business works. So is that person contributing more to the bottom line? Is it somebody that you want to have on your team long term? If so, I think Jackie is 100% right. How do we nurture them to move up with more advanced responsibilities in the organization? That should then lead eventually to more compensation for that person to improve their life, which we all want to do as we gain expertise and advance in our careers. We want to see an increase in our salary. So sometimes I think credit union leaders forget that, and they try to hold people down because maybe it's a smaller team. Maybe there's less than 30 employees on staff. Maybe there's less than 20. I know a credit union where there's 3. And how do we keep those people together in a way that's meaningful without losing that expertise? It can sometimes be hard because people get in their head, well, I'll just give them a title, or I'll give them this, or I'll give them that. And the reality is what the person's actually looking for is a better lifestyle or something that's going to improve their quality of life. And so it's a delicate balance. I think there's a lot of people coming into the marketplace now. They are actively looking to make a difference with their company. And that's also important. But you still got to be thinking about, how are we going to pay our bills? Do I still get to go to Starbucks on the weekend? And all the yada yadas.
When you talk about the bottom line there, James, what I'm hearing is sometimes you have to have the tough conversations. Sometimes you can't play the good guy. Sometimes you have to break it down and say, look, there is no such opportunity to be had here. I'm assuming you've had to have those type of conversations with people, right? Can you recall a particular situation where you did have to do that?
Yeah. I had a young man come into my office one day, and he sat down across from me, and then he said, James, I'm not making enough money here. And I said, oh, really? Okay, cool. So talk to me about how much money you think you should make. And at the time, he was a loan officer. There was a fairly good incentive program at this credit union, comparatively speaking to most. And he was doing pretty well for himself, but he wanted double that. And he said, well, I should be making X. And I said, that's really interesting. I said, do you know that there are vice presidents in this organization right now that make less money than that? And he was totally ignorant to that. He had no idea what the pay scale was or could be. He just thought that he was worth more, right? And so sometimes it's about helping that person understand your contribution. So I said, hey, if you want to get to that level, it ties back to what Jackie was talking about in her organization. If you want to get to that level, these are the things that you need to be engaged in. These are the things that you need to be learning. These are the things that you need to prove that you can do proactively for the credit union. And that will help you get there. The other thing that I committed to him, and I've committed to every person that I get to invest in, is I'm going to commit to helping you improve the quality of your professional career while you're with us, not because you're with us. And that inversion is so important. So if the employees believe that you're invested in them, not just invested in what they do for you, that also can make a big difference.
Last question I got to ask, what happened with that employee? Did they take it kindly, or was there a pushback?
Oh, no, dude, he slammed the door in my face and left. And we had a really terse conversation the next day about his professional etiquette after that. He eventually left the company, but you know what? He came back to me about a year later and said, man, I learned so much from you, and I really appreciate that. And we've built a stronger relationship on that afterwards, to be honest.
Jackie, anything you want to add before we end the scene?
Transparent conversations are so important because I want my staff to feel that they can come to me, but I'm always going to be honest. If there's not a position open, there's not a position open. But here's what I'm going to do so that it is, like I was saying before, it is to prepare them for when something does open up. But the transparent conversations are so important to have.
The Credit Union Board Modernization Act became law on Saturday, but there's more to the legislation than just board meetings. So in that package, there are two things that I was not expecting, James. One is a mentor-protege program that lets small credit unions and minority depository institutions partner up with bigger ones. And then the other thing that they're doing is they're streamlining the federal application process for new charters. But I think it's worth noting how this bill crossed the finish line because nobody signed it. The president let the clock run out, and at midnight, it struck law by default, basically. So this is kind of a strange advocacy win. I don't know how much the two of you have dug into it, but Jackie, I'll start with you. Based on what you know about this bill, do you think this is a real win for the credit union industry?
So I do think it's a win. I think the fact that it became law without a signature, it doesn't necessarily diminish its significance. What matters is that it had bipartisan support, ultimately crossed the finish line, can help credit unions, can help the credit union movement grow. And I think that is a benefit to credit unions and most importantly to the members that we serve.
James, have you had time to dig into this and kind of understand whether this is a move in the right direction or this is kind of an appeasement almost? I'm not going to give you what you want, but you're going to take this little win and you're going to shut up about it.
It's probably somewhere in the middle of that. Here's what I know to be true about the people who are running our country. They know that there are people in small town America all across the country that are voting. And a lot of those people are credit union members. A lot of those people need the services that credit unions can provide. I'll go back to what Jackie said, that the way that it becomes law to me is less relevant. When you're talking about an industry that's 8, maybe 10% market share, that may just not get enough attention in DC when it comes to, is it going to get the signature or not the signature and all those things. I pay less attention to that and more to what could it potentially mean for the credit union industry. So when you think about the smaller credit unions being able to get help, when you think about the relief that it provides to boards and stuff of that nature, that's going to be brought to the forefront. Now, credit unions still have to go adopt those things, right? So putting it into law doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, right? There's a lot of things that have been put into law that credit unions are very slow to act on. But what does it do? Does it allow us to get younger board members coming now? Maybe that's an issue, right? Maybe that mentorship really does come to fruition. There are already credit unions, I know some on the West Coast, that are already doing things like this, that are putting together conferences where large credit unions are, in fact, mentoring smaller credit unions. I've seen it with my own eyes, so I know it exists. But the reality is that this then says, hey, we think this is what you should do. More people are going to read it. Probably more people are going to think about it now, and that could create momentum. And I think that's the key. If you're thinking that you're going to see a monumental shift in the way that credit unions move, or frankly, a monumental shift in the number of charters that are being approved in the next 6, 8, 9 months, I think that's a bit unrealistic. But if you can get momentum behind it, advocacy at the local level, the state leagues, the ACUs of the world, if they start pushing their constituents to be thinking about this and acting on it, sponsoring it at times, I think that's where you're going to see real movement. So again, I really don't care how it got into law because it was bipartisan, like Jackie said. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I think it's going to really help long term, probably a little less in the short term.
When you're looking at the 3 items, the major items in this bill, James, you're thinking about the Board Modernization Act, this idea that we can meet as a board less frequently. Then you have the idea of the mentorship with the bigger credit unions mentoring the smaller ones. Then lastly, you have this legislation to make basically creating a new credit union easier, they say. Of those 3 items, what do you think is the one that excites you the most?
You know, honestly, I think it's still the headline. Like here's what I would say about more credit unions coming, quote unquote, online. And I'm just going to shoot you straight. I'll believe it when I see it. NCUA as an organization has been talking about trying to make that easier for a very long time. And having a law doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to be enacted in practice, right? So you still got to get approved. You still got to get all these things done. There's this capital requirement either exists or it doesn't exist. It depends on who you ask. Is it real? Is it not real? What is the limit there? There's all these things that have been in existence all these years that complicate things. That one I'm not going to be excited about until I see it in practice. The board modernization piece, I guess I should go back. I already see small credit unions getting mentorship from larger credit unions. I see that happening already, those that are proactive enough to go seek it. But when you talk about the board modernization, I think that is really a big deal for us. Because you think about, like, I know credit union boards that average 75 years of age, sometimes older than that. So, it's hard sometimes for credit unions to get volunteers. This makes it easier because now the commitment is not as much to an unpaid volunteer as it was before. So maybe you can get a little bit younger that way. Maybe you can get people that are willing to come to more board meetings because of this and get engaged with the credit union. Maybe it's possible now for them to do that, whereas it might not have been before because of the commitment that was required of them. So I think that's really the headline still, and I think that's the one that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and I'll finish off with you, Jackie, to kind of piggyback on what James said. Does this excite you, the Board Modernization Act, the idea that we can have less frequent meetings and maybe get the board to be younger and make the volunteer commitment lesser for people? Does this excite you, or is this an issue you do not feel like at your credit union you're really dealing with much?
So we do have an older board at SunEast. And yeah, it does excite me. So I think it's great if they can have less meetings, if we can get younger people on the board, I think that's great. I really was excited if we can make it easier for credit unions to become a credit union and get those established. That's the part I was very excited about. But I agree. What's NCUA going to do? How are they going to make the application process easier? And will it actually happen? So out of the three things, that's what I was most excited about. But I believe it when I see it as well.
Fair. That brings us to the end of the show. This is our final thoughts section. Jackie, final thoughts. Anything on your mind that you want to impart with the listeners before we adios?
Well, I want to thank you again for having me on the show. I want to thank the Family Security Plan, who has been a wonderful partner for SunEast Federal Credit Union. We've been partners for well over 12 years now, and they've been an outstanding partner to us. I love credit unions. I love the credit union movement, and I want to see us keep going forward. So part of your show helps us do that and helps get everybody excited for what we can do for our members.
Yeah, Jackie, you mentioned Family Security Plan, and they're very beloved in the industry. A lot of people I talk to really enjoy working with them. What specifically do you like the most about your partnership with them?
So they've really been able to help a lot of our members. So, Family Security Plan, they have their business, but they care about credit union members. And I see that when they talk to our members, when I talk to my members about a phone call that they have received from one of the Family Security Plan reps, it's the caring that they have. So we've built this wonderful relationship with them as a credit union, but it stays strong because of the care that they have. They treat our members as I would treat my members. And that's what's important to me.
And Jackie, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, let's say a listener is digging what you're putting down and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Email. So my email is jbelusko@suneast.org.
All right. James, final thoughts or plugs?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't echo what Jackie said about FSP. Some people still know them as PFP, but great people over there, Jim, Lou, and that team. If you don't know them and you're a credit union trying to grow your membership, you should. I'll just leave it at that. And if you need help getting connected with them, there's lots of ways that you can find them. You can even reach out to me if you want. But the main thing I want to keep saying every time I come on here is it is so important for us to be talking about building villages, building outlets where we can build community inside this industry. So, Grow Your Credit Union, a great example of that. How do we continue to push this movement forward in a way that's meaningful for our communities? Right? That's so important to me so that we still have credit unions 50 to 75 years from now in our communities. How do we make sure we're doing the work that makes that happen? So, you can find me, let's go cuservices.com, James McBride on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have those conversations with you. But that's what we need to be doing, guys, is making sure we're pushing this industry forward so that our grandchildren's grandchildren still know credit unions.
I want to say thank you to our guest today. Want to thank my co-host and want to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Family Security Plan. And of course, a special thanks to you, our listeners, for continuing to support and listen to another episode of Grow Your Credit Union. If you like the show, please follow us on your podcast player of choice. If you want to be a guest or would like to talk about sponsorship opportunities, head to growyourcreditunion.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.